Hey guys, this is Locke. So today I'm going to do a Creysse review. To start off, I want to say that I did all the missions except for the brutal missions. So I'm just going to show you that. Um, Only the brutal difficulty missions are not yet done. And the reason I didn't do the brutal missions is to show you that even without the brutal missions, you can get her up to LB4. I've only awakened her up to awaken 4 as well, because you get one shard, like one of these fragments of thoughts from the mission. So even if you had nothing, you can at least, if you didn't have any other rainbow fragments saved, you can at least get her up to this stage, up to level 70, LB4. I would recommend that you actually get her up to Awaken 6. Even with LB4 Awaken 6, she can still be useful as a offensive support unit. And so what I will be doing is I'll be going through her skills. I will be telling you why I think she's very useful, and then I'll show you two different compositions that I think she could work on. So to start off, I'm going to go through her skills and tell you why she's so useful in my opinion. So this is her tree with LB4 Awaken 4. I think she's missing out on some of the key skills that makes her very useful. So I would definitely recommend going up to Awaken 6 with her. That would unlock Arm Shot. This Arm Shot, not this Arm Shot. They're both the same name, but this is the one that's a lot more useful in my opinion. And I'll go through that in a second. The other very good skill that she gets is Barrier Break Arrow, which needs her to be Awaken 5. Target Share is also a pretty good skill, and you get that again at Awaken 6. So to get the most use out of her, you really need her at Awaken 6. So now to start her off with the review, one of the biggest complaints I've heard is that her attack is pretty low. And that's fair. Her attack is low, but you don't need her to have a high attack to make use of her skills as a offensive support. So the first thing I want you to look at is her passives. She has Concentrate, which gives you range +2, and she also has a long range passive, which gives you range +1. So that's +3 range. The skill that I think you should be using most often is this Arm Shot, which has a range of 4. If you add 3 to that, that becomes a range of 7. Additionally, she also gets this buff, so which increases her own range by +1. It also increases allies' range too, but we're just talking about her as a unit by itself right now. So that's an additional 4 range. So she can cast Arm Shot from 8 spaces away. Giving her, move 3 to start with, she can hit you with Arm Shot from 11 spaces away from where she starts. That's a very scary long range, right? So that's why I think that'll be one of the key uses of her as an offensive support. If you get her faith up to 97 and she's fighting other units like say Agrius, who typically has a faith of 97, she has a 48% chance to disable from 8 to 11 spaces away. 11 spaces to start, but you move up 3 and you can hit from 8 spaces away. So I think that's a scary long range, and so that's one of the reasons why I think she's a good offensive support. The other skills are her buffs. So I'm going to point out the buffs right now, and then I'm going to show you a composition where I think she could work with these buffs. So the first buff that I want you to pay attention to is Aimed Fire. This increases the missile attack of everyone in a AoE +1 range around her by 38, and it also increases the range of her and the allies by +1. The second buff that she would have when you put, so I think she should be used under the um, sniper subjob. So that's when you unlock this Arm Shot, and you would also unlock Target Share. So Target Share increases the attack of everyone in a AoE +1 range by 30%. It also bestows Esper Killer, but for PvP, it's not Esper Killer is not very useful. It could be useful in specific PvE encounters. But anyway, so Aimed Fire, Target Share. Those are very two good buffs. If you happen to need a third buff, you can also go with Cancel, which increases the critical rate of everyone. But most of the time, Aimed Fire and Target Share is what you would most likely be using most of the time. Other things to point out. Well, let me point out a second skill that I think she'd be using a lot in addition to arm shot. The second skill that she should be using often is the barrier break arrow. This is to break barriers of units that are using, for example, Saintly Wall, or if they're using TMRs like Marshari's TMR or Ayaka's TMR. I think, I'm not entirely sure because I need to do more testing, but it might also break, uh, what's his name? The Mirage skill of Laswell. The problem with that is that you need to pump up her accuracy and dex to be able to hit him when he's built on evade, but it could still it breaks barriers, so it's a very useful skill. So arm shot, barrier break, target share, aim to fire. Uh, Sorry, not this arm shot. This arm shot. That's the good one. The other one is not as good for a couple of reasons. But these are the four skills, including the passives, that I think make her very, very good. Other things like, for example, slow shot is situational when you want to build chains and stuff. But those are the four skills that I think are very useful for her. I'm going to show you a couple of compositions that I think would work with her, and I'm going to point out why I think those skills are good. So this is going to be a ranger composition. In this composition, you want Frederica to have bells, and you want Nivlu to be a supporting haster or quickener. You don't need these three units. For example, you can build like Creysse, Frederica, and Lucia or Luartha or something. But I think this composition is going to work well, and I will tell you why I think this is a powerful, good composition. So typically, when you're playing Rangers, you want to stay far away. You And you want to build up your momentum as soon as you can, because if you're fighting a good opponent, they will come and charge at you as soon as they can. So if you're able to get ready to attack on turn 2, that's a huge difference than being ready to attack on turn 3, because by turn 3, enemies would have had a chance to move up at least 6 spaces, and usually they have like a range 5 skill or something. So they would have had a chance to close 11 spaces between you and them, or attack you with 11 spaces. So if you can reduce the turns you're ready from 3 to 2, I think that's a huge advantage. And that's what this team is built on. So Frederica is going to be your main damage dealer. So on the first turn, you want to use this skill. You want to use the Bell skill to give her a lot of AP so she can start attacking on turn 2. On the first turn, you want to be using this skill, the aimed fire skill, on Frederica to give her +1 range and +38 missile attack. +38 missile attack is no joke. That's more than what you would get from this vision card. This only gives you +35 missile attack. So that's basically better than having a second of these effects on Frederica. Gunners have low attacks, so this is how they make up their damage, by increasing their missile attacks from VCs and other buffs. And that's why I think that buff is very important, that missile attack buff from either the gunner or dual gunner subjobs. So this is what the three of them are doing. So Creysse is going to be using that aimed fire buff on Frederica. Frederica is going to be using the bells to get ready to attack on turn 2. And Nivlu will probably cast haste on herself or Frederica. We can build out a turn order where on the second turn, Nivlu can cast Quicken on Frederica, and she can take 2 turns in a row and like barrage everybody twice in a row or something. You can work out the timings for that. And that will work with this setup. Right? If you didn't have Creysse, for example, you would use Lucia to achieve a similar kind of composition. But the thing you lack with that is that +1 range. Range is very good for these units because they're not built to take damage. They're built to deal as much damage from as far away as possible. So I often find that the +1 range is better from the gunner subjob than the dual gunner subjob, because the dual gunner subjob gives you a defense penetration only for the unit that uses it, and it gives you +40 missile attack instead of +38, so it is 2 higher, but it's not. But I think the +1 range is much more effective than +2 missile attack. Additionally, because Creysse is a MR unit, this kind of composition might work in future class matches because you have a cost limitation of 540. So you might not be able to take Lucia. You might have to take an MR unit, and Creysse is one that would work. Additionally, because of the two skills that I pointed out, the barrier break and the what is it? The arm shot. So she will be arm shot is very low AP cost. It has a cost of 12, and it has a range height of 5. So this is why it's better than the gunner arm shot, because the gunner arm shot has a cost of 28 AP. And secondly, it has a height range of 0. So you need to be on the exact same height to take advantage of it. Whereas this one has a height range of 5. You can fire over mountains, you know? So that's, that's why I think she's a good unit. If you're facing an Agrius and you don't have that barrier break, you might need to hit her like with a quad shot, and quad shot has a range of 2, and it can't hit over things. So as a as a sniper sub job, that arm shot and that barrier break can hit over units, and it can hit over like something in the way. You don't need line of sight. So that's, I think she will do her job as a very good buffer. I think she will do her job as running interference by, disabling units that are trying to get close, while Frederica and your other gunner, like in this case Nivlu, rain damage down on them. So I think that she will work in that kind of composition. Second composition I think she would work on is a water composition. She could actually work on any composition as a, like a offensive support unit. But I think these two compositions she would work like exceptionally well. The reason she would work really well on a water composition is because she has this mastery ability, which increases the water allies HP by 10% and gives plus 10 water attack to everybody as well. So your other two water units, in this case Ildira and Glaciella, their stats are boosted just from having Creysse around, right? So when Titus is released, if you put Creysse, Titus, and Glaciella on the same team, Glaciella will get plus 10 water attack from Creysse and plus 15 from Titus. If you also put a maxed Siren VC on somebody on this team, that will be plus 35 water attack. So for example, you can have something like this, and two other defensive cards, like, I don't know, for example, just for argument's sake, let's say your team looks like this. So your bruiser, which is so assuming this one is Titus, your bruiser will have plus 10% HP from Fenrir, and he would also have plus 10% HP from Creysse. Your Glaciella is going to have plus 60 water attack from Creysse, from Titus, and from Siren, and another 10%, sorry, not 10%, but another 10 man eater from Odin. So what I'm trying to say is, like you only have one offensive VC here, which is the Siren. The other two VCs are just purely defensive, but this team is still able to deal a high damage just from the unit's mastery abilities. So in this team, aimed fire will not be the priority. You will want to use target share because you want to increase the attack of Glaciella and Titus, because missile attack doesn't really do much for them. So on turn 1, you would probably use target share, or you would use your TMR skill. And then the second priority after that would be aimed fire, so that you have a longer range to try to disable opponents as they're closing in on you. So Creysse would work with other teams as well. You can use her as an offensive support in any other team. If the other two units are not water units, they just miss out on her mastery abilities. But she's still a very good unit. She doesn't have that attack, but most likely you will be using, if any, one MR unit, maybe two MR units, and at least one UR unit. So the UR unit you use will typically be your main damage dealer. So you don't need to you don't need to have 3 super fast high damage dealers. most of the time, just one damage dealer and like one or two supports is all you really need. Um, and in a composition like this, Creysse does not need to be your damage dealer. She can be a fantastic support. Uh, just looking at Creysse and Glaciella by themselves, like suppose you only have those two on a team, and you're fighting an Agrius, and an Agrius, comes forward and uses Saintly Wall. So if your Creysse can go before Glaciella, she will use Barrier Break to remove the Saintly Wall from Agrius, and then Glaciella will go and not only damage an unbarriered Agrius, she will also do extra damage because of the water chain from Creysse's skill. So Creysse, I've been using Winter Vectora in a very similar fashion. I've just been using her as a support character. She has a high attack, much higher than Creysse for sure. But still, I've just been using her as a support DPS, just breaking barriers, dispelling buffs. Creysse does not have the buff dispelling skill, unfortunately, but she still does a fantastic job with the skills that she has. So I would definitely recommend her for especially gunner teams and also for water teams. But I think overall she's a good unit. I think she would definitely be worth the fragments of thought that you spend on her. You should at least be able to get her to LB4, but LB5 will be fantastic. I hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.